The laughter started as a low rumble deep in Krelvath's chest, then grew louder, echoing through the sphere. It was not the laugh of anger or madness. It was the laugh of genuine amusement, of surprise, of respect. The warlord floated in the zero gravity, one massive hand touching the cut on his chest where blue blood still seeped out slowly. Taemin remained still, his blade ready, unsure what was happening. Every muscle in his body screamed with exhaustion. His left arm hung useless at his side, but he kept his blade up, kept his focus sharp. The duel was over, but nothing was certain until they left the sphere. Krelvath's laughter faded into a deep chuckle. He looked at Taemin with those burning orange eyes, and something had changed in them. The contempt was gone. The dismissal was gone. In their place was something Taemin had not expected to see: recognition. "You tricked me," Krelvath said, his voice carrying clearly through the sphere. "From the beginning you tricked me. I thought you were running. I thought you were weak, but you were studying me, learning me, waiting." Taemin lowered his blade slightly but did not deactivate it. "I was surviving." "No." Krelvath shook his massive head. "You were hunting. Like a predator that knows it is smaller than its prey, so it must be smarter." He touched his chest again, looking at the blood on his fingers. "I have fought for 300 years. I have won 5,000 duels. I have never been beaten by someone I thought was weak. I am not weak," Taemin said quietly. "No, you are not." Krelvath extended one of his massive hands. "You are strong in ways I did not understand. I was wrong about your people, human. I apologize." Taemin stared at the offered hand. A Vraxian apology was rare. A Vraxian admitting they were wrong was almost unheard of. Slowly, with his good arm, he reached out and took Krelvath's hand. The warlord's grip was gentle, careful not to crush human bones. "I honor you, Taemin of Earth," Krelvath said formally. "I honor your skill, your courage, and your wisdom. And I honor your people, who I now see are far more dangerous than I believed." "Dangerous?" Taemin asked. "Yes." Krelvath released his hand. "A species that can fight like a warrior but chooses to speak like a diplomat is the most dangerous kind. Because they know war but they do not crave it. That makes them unpredictable. Unpredictability wins battles." Outside the sphere, the watching galaxy finally found its voice. Ships began signaling. Horns and lights and sounds from 1,000 cultures all mixing together. It was celebration, shock, disbelief. A human had done the impossible. The capsules returned to retrieve them. As Taemin climbed into his, he looked back at Krelvath. The warlord gave him a small nod, a gesture of respect between warriors. Then the capsule sealed and Taemin was pulled back to the station. The moment the capsule opened in the launch bay, hands were grabbing him, voices were shouting. Jiwoo and Donghyun pulled him out, both of them talking at once. Hana was crying and laughing simultaneously. Medical personnel swarmed around him, checking his injuries, especially his damaged shoulder. "You did it," Jiwoo kept saying. "You actually did it." "I am aware," Taemin managed to say, though his voice sounded strange to his own ears. The adrenaline was fading and everything hurt. They rushed him to the medical bay where doctors worked on his shoulder. The neural whip had caused significant damage to the nerves and muscles. It would take weeks to heal properly, even with advanced medicine. But he was alive. That was what mattered. While the doctors worked, reports came flooding in. The duel had been watched by over 5 billion beings across the galaxy. Earth was celebrating in every city. Messages poured in from hundreds of worlds, most of them congratulating humanity on their representative's victory. Several major powers that had been dismissive of Earth were now requesting immediate diplomatic meetings. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Taemin was still in medical, his arm in a specialized healing brace when they called for him. He went because that was his job. Jiwoo and Hana went with him. The council chamber was different now. The walls were bright yellow gold, the color of respect and admiration. The council members looked at Taemin with new eyes. He was no longer just another human diplomat. He was the human who had beaten a Vraxian warlord. The Silthene council leader spoke with warm currents in its voice. "Ambassador Taemin, the Galactic Council wishes to express its profound respect for your courage and skill. You have accomplished something unprecedented in our history." "Thank you, honored council," Taemin replied, standing straight despite the pain in his shoulder. "But I did what any diplomat would do. I represented my people to the best of my ability." Most diplomats do not fight duels to the death, one of the council members, a crystalline being from Zephyros Tharf, observed. Most diplomats are not challenged to duels to the death, Taemin replied. I simply adapted to the situation. Krelvath entered the chamber then, flanked by his guards. The wound on his chest had been treated and sealed. He moved with his usual power, but there was less aggression in his stance now. He approached the council and gave a formal bow which was surprising. Vraxians rarely bowed to anyone. Honored council, Krelvath said, his voice formal and clear. I come to fulfill my oath. I challenge the human and the human won. By Vraxian law and tradition I am bound to honor the treaty he proposed. He turned to face Taemin directly. I also come to publicly acknowledge my error. I believed humanity was weak. I believed they hid behind diplomacy because they feared war. I was wrong on both counts, he paused. They choose diplomacy because they are wise enough to know that war should be the last option, not the first. That is not weakness. That is strength I did not recognize. The chamber was silent. Every being present understood the significance of what was happening. A Vraxian warlord in front of the entire galaxy was admitting he had been wrong about an entire species. Krelvath continued, From this day forward, the Vraxian Empire will honor Earth and its people. We will sign the trade agreement. We will open our space to human ships, and we will tell all who will listen that humanity is not to be underestimated or dismissed. He reached into his armor and pulled out something that made several council members gasp. It was a Vraxian honor blade, a ceremonial weapon given only to those who had earned the highest respect of a Vraxian warrior. The blade was beautiful, carved from a single piece of crimson metal that glowed with inner fire. Krelvath held it out to Taemin. I give you this blade not as a defeated enemy, but as a recognized equal. Carry it, and all Vraxians will know you have earned our respect. Taemin took the blade with his good hand. It was surprisingly light, warm to the touch. I am honored, Warlord Krelvath, and I hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. Friendship, Krelvath repeated, as if testing the word. Then he smiled that too-many-teeth smile. Yes, I think I would like to see what friendship with humans looks like. It must be interesting. The treaty was signed that afternoon. The ceremony was formal and witnessed by representatives from 50 worlds. Taemin signed for Earth, his injured arm making the signature shaky but clear. Krelvath signed for the Vraxian Empire, his massive hand making surprisingly delicate marks on the document. After the ceremony, the real work began. Other species that had been watching from the sidelines suddenly wanted to talk to Earth. The Kryn Collective, known for their aggressive trade practices, requested a meeting. The Thalorian principalities, who had ignored Earth's previous diplomatic overtures, now sent messages asking for cultural exchanges. Even the mysterious Vex, a species that rarely dealt with anyone, expressed interest in opening communications. Earth's diplomatic corps was overwhelmed with requests. Taemin spent the next 3 days in constant meetings, his arm still in its healing brace, negotiating agreements and opening channels that had been closed before. Everywhere he went on the station, beings stopped to stare at him, to nod respectfully, sometimes to ask for his signature or a photograph. He hated the attention, but he understood it. He had become a symbol, not just of his own courage, but of what humanity represented to the galaxy, a species that preferred peace but could wage war. A species that chose diplomacy but could fight when necessary. A species that was perhaps more formidable than anyone had realized. One evening, 5 days after the duel, he sat alone in his quarters looking at the Vraxian honor blade. It was beautiful in a harsh way, like Krelvath himself. He thought about the duel, about how close he had come to dying, about how one decision, one challenge had changed everything. A message came through from young Me. When he opened it, her face filled the screen, tears streaming down her cheeks but smiling. I watched, she said. The whole world watched. I am so proud of you, brother. So proud you showed them what we are, what we can be when we have to be. Taemin smiled sadly. I just did not want to die in front of billions of people. She laughed through her tears. Well, you succeeded. Now come home soon. We want to throw you the biggest party Seoul has ever seen. I hate parties. I know. We are throwing you one anyway. After the message ended, he sat in the quiet of his quarters, feeling the weight of what had happened. One duel, one fight, and the galaxy's perception of humanity had shifted. They were no longer the newcomers to be dismissed or the weak species to be intimidated. 6 months had passed since the duel that changed everything. Taman stood in another conference room, on another station, facing another alien species that needed to be convinced that humanity was worth their time. But this time everything was different. The Kryn Collective had requested the meeting. The Kryn were known throughout the galaxy as aggressive traders who used intimidation and threats to get better deals. They were large beings covered in thick scales with voices that sounded like grinding stone. Their homeworlds were rich in rare minerals, and many species paid inflated prices just to avoid conflict with them. The Kryn delegation sat across from Taman and his team. Jiwoo was there, as always, along with Hana and 2 new diplomats that Earth had sent after the success at Apex Prime. The lead Kryn negotiator, whose name translated roughly as Gron, stared at Taman with small dark eyes. "Humans," Gron said, his voice deep and threatening. "You come asking for mining rights in our territory. Why should we grant you anything? You are small. You are new to the galaxy. You have little to offer." It was the same tactic the Kryn used with everyone. Start with insults. Establish dominance, force the other species to negotiate from a position of weakness. 6 months ago it might have worked on Taman. 6 months ago humanity was still trying to prove it belonged in the galactic community. Now Taman just smiled. It was a small smile, polite but knowing. "You have seen the recordings," he said simply. Gron stopped mid-breath. His scales rippled, a sign of uncertainty in Kryn body language. Of course he had seen the recordings. Everyone had seen the recordings. The duel between Taman and Krelvath had been watched billions of times across thousands of worlds. It was the most viewed event in galactic history. "We have seen," Gron admitted carefully. "Then you know that humanity does not respond well to threats," Taman continued, his voice calm and friendly. "We prefer cooperation. We prefer mutual benefit, but if forced we can defend our interests quite effectively." He let that sink in, then opened the folder in front of him. "Now, shall we discuss the mining rights like professionals? I believe we have a proposal that benefits both our peoples." The threats stopped. The negotiation proceeded smoothly. 3 hours later, they had an agreement that gave Earth access to Kryn mining territories in exchange for agricultural technology and medical supplies. Both sides left satisfied. No one had been insulted. No one had been challenged to a duel. After the Kryn delegation left, Jiwoo leaned back in her chair and laughed. "Did you see his face when you mentioned defending our interests? He looked like he had swallowed something unpleasant." "He was recalculating," Hana said, smiling, wondering if humans were worth the trouble of intimidating. "The answer is no," Taman said. "We are definitely not worth that trouble." They gathered their materials and left the conference room. As they walked through the station, Taman noticed the change in how other beings looked at humans now. There were still some who showed curiosity or confusion, but the contempt was gone. The dismissal was gone. In their place was respect, sometimes tinged with wariness, but respect nonetheless. A group of young Vraxian warriors passed them in the corridor. They stopped when they saw Taman and gave him a formal salute, pressing all 4 fists to their chests. He returned the gesture as best he could with 2 hands. The warriors grinned and continued on their way. "That still feels strange," Taman muttered. "You are a legend now," Jiwoo said, "the human who beat Krelvath. They teach about you in Vraxian combat academies. Did you know that?" He did know. Krelvath had sent him a message about it 2 months ago. The Warlord had been amused that human combat techniques were now being studied by Vraxian warriors. He had also sent an invitation for Taman to visit the Vraxian homeworld and speak at their warrior academy. Taman had politely declined, saying he was too busy with diplomatic work. In truth, he just wanted to avoid more fighting. Back on Earth, life had changed too. Humanity's position in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. Trade agreements that had been impossible before were now commonplace. Species that had ignored Earth's messages now responded within hours. 3 major powers had offered defensive alliances, something that would have been unthinkable before the duel. The human diplomatic corps had expanded, with new academies opening to train the next generation of ambassadors. Taman had been offered the position of Director of Galactic Relations, but he had turned it down. He preferred working directly with other species, not managing from an office on Earth. His sister Young Mi called him regularly, always wanting to hear stories about his latest negotiations. She had become something of a celebrity herself, being interviewed about what it was like growing up with the man who changed humanity's place in the galaxy. She handled it with grace and humor, much better than Taman would have. One afternoon, while reviewing reports in his quarters, Taman received an unexpected message. It was from Krelvath. The Warlord's face filled the screen, his orange eyes bright with something that might have been excitement. Taman, my friend, Krelvath said, using the term friend naturally now, as if they had known each other for years. I have news. The Vraxian High Command has agreed to a proposal I made. We want to establish a joint training program with Earth's military. Vraxian warriors will learn human tactics and human soldiers will learn Vraxian combat forms. Taman raised an eyebrow. A cultural exchange program? Yes, though I prefer to call it learning how to fight properly, Krelvath said with a grin. My people are warriors, but we are not foolish. Your victory taught us that there are many ways to wage war, and we have been following only one path for too long. We wish to learn your path. And what does Earth get from this? Knowledge of Vraxian battle techniques which are respected across the galaxy, access to our training facilities, and perhaps most importantly a partnership with the greatest warrior race in known space. Krelvath leaned closer to the screen. We would not offer this to just anyone, but you showed us that humans understand war in ways we do not. That makes you valuable teachers. Taman thought about it. A military exchange program would strengthen ties between Earth and the Vraxian Empire. It would also give humanity access to combat knowledge that had been refined over millennia. I will bring the proposal to Earth's government. I think they will be interested. Good. Krelvath nodded. Also, I have a personal request. My daughter is of age to begin warrior training. I want her to understand that strength comes in many forms, not just Vraxian forms. Would you consider training her for a time? Not in combat, but in strategy and wisdom. Taman was surprised. For a Vraxian to ask an alien to train their child was unprecedented. I am honored, Krelvath. But I am a diplomat, not a teacher. You are both, the Warlord replied. You taught me whether you meant to or not. You taught the galaxy. Teaching one more would not be difficult, I think. Let me consider it, Taman said. It is a significant responsibility. After the call ended, he sat thinking about how much had changed. Not just for him, but for all of humanity. They had gone from being newcomers that everyone dismissed to being respected partners in galactic affairs. And it had all started with one duel, one fight he had never wanted. 2 months later, Taman was back on Apex Prime for another round of negotiations. This time with a coalition of smaller worlds who wanted to form a trading bloc with Earth. The negotiations were going well. Professional and cordial. During a break, he stood by the observation window where he had stood 6 months earlier, looking at the stars. The sphere where he had fought Krelvath was still there, now used occasionally for recreational zero-gravity sports. No more duels had been fought in it. Perhaps that was for the best. Hana joined him at the window. I have been analyzing the data from the past 6 months, she said. The change in how other species interact with humanity is remarkable. Before the duel, 40% of our diplomatic overtures were ignored completely. Now 98% receive responses within 24 hours. Numbers do not tell the whole story, Taman said. No, but they show the trend. You changed how the galaxy sees us. One action, one moment, and everything shifted. It should not have required violence, he said quietly. We should have been respected for our achievements, our culture, our science. Not because I want to fight. Perhaps, Hana agreed. But the galaxy is not fair or logical. Sometimes it takes a dramatic moment to make people see what was always there. You provided that moment. Donghyun appeared, walking toward them with his usual confident stride. Taman, I have news. Earth's government approved the joint training program with the Vraxians. They are also asking if you would be willing to help develop the curriculum. More work? Taman sighed. You are the man of the hour, Donghyun said with a grin. Everyone wants a piece of you now. That evening, as Taman prepared for the next day's negotiations, he received a message from someone he did not know. The sender was identified only as a representative from the Vex, the mysterious species that rarely communicated with anyone. The message was brief. Ambassador Taman, the Vex have observed humanity's recent actions with interest. We wish to open diplomatic channels. We believe your species possesses qualities that align with our values. Please respond if interested. The morning of the duel arrived with no ceremony, just cold reality. Taman woke before dawn, though there was no real dawn in space. The station operated on standard galactic time, but his body did not care about that. He lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling his heartbeat. Steady, calm, good. He got up and went through his routine. Shower, meditation, light breakfast. Jiwoo had wanted to go over strategy one more time, but he had refused. There was nothing more to say. Either he had learned enough in 3 days or he had not. Worrying about it now would only make things worse. The sphere hung in space like a massive soap bubble made of metal and energy. It was 200 feet across, perfectly round and completely transparent. Ships from 1,000 worlds had gathered around it, forming a floating audience that stretched for miles. Taemin could see them through the station's windows as he walked to the preparation room. So many beings, all waiting to watch him die. In the preparation room, Dong-hyun helped him into the combat suit. It was thin, flexible, offering minimal protection but maximum movement. Gray-blue in color with the Earth symbol on the shoulder. No armor. Armor would slow him down in zero gravity. Remember, Dong-hyun said as he checked the suit's seals. Fast and unpredictable. Do not let him set the pace. I remember. Hana was there too, along with Jiwoo. They both looked worried but tried to hide it. Hana handed him the energy blade, a simple weapon with a 3-foot blade of pure energy when activated. Currently, it was just a handle. The sphere's field will activate both weapons at the same time, she explained, though they had been over this before. Once they turn on, they stay on until the duel ends. Taemin took the blade and attached it to his belt. It felt light. Everything felt light. Maybe that was just adrenaline. Jiwoo stepped close, speaking quietly so only he could hear. You do not have to do this. We could find another way. There is no other way, he replied just as quietly. Not one that does not cost us everything. She hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Then win. Come back, that is the plan. The door opened and a Silthene official floated in. Its tentacles moved in a pattern that translated as urgency. It is time, Ambassador. Taemin followed the official through the corridors of Apex Prime. Other beings watched him pass. Some nodded respectfully. Others looked away, already mourning him. A group of human civilians stood together, holding signs of support. One sign read, Earth stands with you. He nodded to them as he passed. The launch bay was massive, big enough to hold small ships. Today it held 2 launch tubes that would fire capsules directly into the sphere. Taemin's capsule was open and waiting, a small pod barely big enough for one person. He climbed in and strapped himself down. The capsule door sealed with a hiss. Through the small window he could see the sphere. Inside it was black, empty, waiting. In a few minutes it would be filled with violence. The countdown began in his ear. 60 seconds, 50, 40. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly, deeply. In his mind he went over everything he had learned. The patterns, the weaknesses, the plan. It was not much of a plan, really. Stay alive, find an opening, and strike before Krelvath killed him. Simple. Almost certainly impossible. 10 seconds. 9, 8. He opened his eyes. 3, 2, 1. The capsule launched. The acceleration pushed him back into the seat, then suddenly stopped as he entered the sphere. The capsule opened and he floated out into the null-gravity environment. The sphere's interior was bright now, lit by glowing panels in the walls. Everything was visible. Nothing to hide behind. Nowhere to run. Across from him, Krelvath's capsule opened. The Warlord emerged like some ancient god of war, all forearms spread wide, his purple skin gleaming under the lights. He was even more massive than Taemin remembered. 8 feet tall and half as wide, covered in muscles and scars. His eyes burned orange as they fixed on the human. Around them, outside the sphere, 1 million beings watched. The view was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Humans on Earth gathered in public squares holding their breath. Aliens on 1,000 planets placed last-minute bets, already certain of the outcome. The Silthene Arbiter appeared as a hologram in the center of the sphere, floating between them. Its voice echoed in the space, clear and formal. This is a duel of honor, as witnessed by the Galactic Council and the assembled species. The rules are ancient and sacred. Both combatants will fight with energy blades. The duel ends at first blood drawn on the torso or head. Any strike to limbs does not count. Killing is not required but allowed. Do both parties understand? I understand, Taemin said. I understand, Krelvath rumbled. Then the blades are activated. Begin when ready. The hologram vanished. Taemin felt his blade activate, the energy blade humming to life in his hand. Blue energy, bright and deadly. Across from him, Krelvath activated not one blade but four. Two in his front arms, each blade red as blood. Two more weapons in his rear arms, not blades but neural whips that crackled with electricity. 4 weapons against 1. 4 arms against 2. 8 feet of warrior against a man who was barely 6 feet tall. The odds looked even worse from inside the sphere. Krelvath smiled, showing too many teeth. "I will make this quick, human. You do not deserve to suffer long." "How kind," Taemin replied. Then Krelvath launched himself forward, and the duel began. The Warlord moved with terrifying speed, all 4 weapons striking at once. 2 blades came from above, 1 from the side, the whips lashing from below. It was a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm any defense. Against most opponents, it would have worked. Taemin did not try to block. He pushed off the wall behind him, diving under the attack using the zero gravity to move in 3 dimensions. He spun as he passed, his blade missing Krelvath by inches but forcing the Warlord to twist awkwardly in midair. They separated, floating on opposite sides of the sphere. Krelvath looked surprised. Good. Taemin wanted him surprised. The Warlord attacked again, this time more carefully. He used his greater reach, striking with measured blows that forced Taemin to dodge constantly. The human moved like water, flowing around each attack, never in the same place twice. He did not try to match power with power. Instead, he conserved energy, let Krelvath waste his. 3 minutes passed. 5, 10. Taemin had not struck once, only evaded. The watching galaxy began to murmur. What was the human doing? Why was he running? But Taemin was not running. He was learning. With every attack, he studied Krelvath's patterns, the way his front right arm always led, the way his rear arm supported but never initiated, the small pause between strike sequences, the rhythm. 15 minutes in, Taemin began to counter. Not full attacks, just testing strikes. A quick slash at Krelvath's blade to redirect it. A feint toward the Warlord's side that made him turn. Small things, but they disrupted the pattern. Krelvath was breathing harder now. Zero gravity was exhausting if you fought with power instead of efficiency. He snarled and changed tactics, using his neural whips to control more space. The whips could extend 15 feet, their electric tips crackling. One whip lashed out faster than Taemin expected. He tried to dodge, but the tip caught his left shoulder. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and paralyzing. His entire left arm went numb, useless. He spun away, creating distance, gasping. Outside the sphere, the odds shifted. 1,000 to 1 against the human now. Blood would be drawn soon. Everyone could see it. Krelvath saw the injury and pressed forward, sensing victory. His forearms became a whirlwind of attacks, no longer measured, now aggressive and dominant. This was how he always won, by overwhelming his wounded prey. But Taemin had fought injured before. In zero gravity on Titan, with a broken rib and a punctured lung, he had survived a battle that should have killed him. Pain was just information. He could work with information. He switched his blade to his right hand, his good hand. Changed his stance, changed his movement pattern. Instead of flowing away from attacks, he started moving toward them, getting inside Krelvath's reach where the long weapons became liabilities. In close, Krelvath's forearms got in each other's way. The blades could not swing without risk of hitting his own limbs. The whips were useless at close range. Taemin exploited every inch of space, making the Warlord fight in ways he was not trained for. 20 minutes had passed. Both fighters were breathing hard now. Sweat floated in the air around them like tiny stars. Taemin's shoulder screamed with pain, but he ignored it. Krelvath was frustrated, his attacks becoming wilder, less controlled. Taemin spoke for the first time since the duel began. His voice was calm, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. You called us weak because we choose diplomacy. Krelvath struck at him with both front blades. Taemin deflected one, evaded the other. But we choose diplomacy, Taemin continued, because we have seen what we become when we choose war. Another exchange of blows. Taemin was faster now, his strikes more precise. He was not trying to win anymore. He was trying to survive long enough to find the opening. We know violence, Taemin said. We have practiced it for thousands of years. We are very, very good at it. Krelvath roared and launched his most ferocious assault yet, all 4 weapons striking in perfect coordination, a killing blow designed to end the fight right now. The news spread through Apex Prime like fire through dry grass. Within an hour, every being on the station knew about the challenge. Within 3 hours, the story had reached every civilized world in the galaxy. a human diplomat, had accepted a Vraxian honor duel. Most people thought he was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Many thought he was both. Tae-min sat alone in his quarters, staring at his hands. They were steady. That was good. He had been in worse situations before, though he had not told anyone that. The diplomatic corps did not need to know everything about his past. Some doors were better left closed. A knock on his door broke his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Ji-woo entered, and she was angry. He could see it in the way she moved, in the tight line of her jaw. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it. "We need to talk," she said. "I know what you're going to say." "Do you?" She pushed off the door and walked toward him. "Because I am about to say that you just signed your death warrant for no good reason. That duel was a trap and you walked right into it." Tae-min stood to face her. "It was not a trap. It was inevitable. Krelvath came here to humiliate us. If I had refused, humanity would have been marked as cowards. We would lose more than just Vraxian trade. We would lose respect across the entire galaxy. And now you lose your life instead," Ji-woo snapped. "That is a terrible trade." "Maybe." Tae-min walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Or maybe I do not lose." Ji-woo laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tae-min, I have seen recordings of Vraxian duels. They are monsters. They train from birth to fight. You are a diplomat. You have never held a weapon in your life." He turned to look at her, and something in his eyes made her stop. "That is not exactly true," he said quietly. Ji-woo stared at him. "What?" Tae-min sat down on the edge of his bed, suddenly looking very tired. "Before I joined the diplomatic corps, I had another career, another life." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I was in the military, Ji-woo. Special Operations Division. I fought in the resource wars on Europa and Titan." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out for a moment. Then, "What? How did I not know this?" "Because it is classified. Because the diplomatic corps thought a clean record looked better than a military one. Because I wanted to leave that part of my life behind." He looked up at her. "I have killed people, Ji-woo. More than I care to remember. With guns, with knives, with my bare hands when I had to. I am not some soft academic who stumbled into negotiations." Ji-woo sat down next to him slowly. "Special operations," she repeated. "How long?" 8 years. 2 tours on Europa, 1 on Titan, 1 in the asteroid belt." His voice was flat, reciting facts. "Close quarters combat specialist, zero-gravity warfare, psychological operations. I was good at it, too good, that is why I left." "Why did you leave?" He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Because I got tired of being good at killing. I wanted to be good at something else. So I went back to school, got my degrees, joined the diplomatic corps. I thought I could help prevent wars instead of fight them." He smiled sadly. "Funny how life works." Ji-woo put her hand on his shoulder. "Does anyone else know?" "The director of Earth Diplomatic Services knows. A few others in high positions. No one on this station except you now." He looked at her. "I am going to need your help. Not as my military advisor, as my friend." She squeezed his shoulder. "You have it. Whatever you need." What Tae-min needed, it turned out, was Hana's research. She worked through the night, pulling up every piece of information about Vraxian combat traditions that existed in the Galactic database. By morning, she had compiled a report that made for grim reading. They met in a secure room, just the 3 of them. Sujin was still in medical, recovering from her broken nose and concussion. Hana looked exhausted, her eyes red from staring at screens, but her report was thorough. "Vraxian honor duels follow strict rules," she explained, projecting images onto the wall. "They take place in a sphere made of transparent metal suspended in space so everyone can watch. The sphere has null gravity inside. No up, no down." "That actually helps me," Tae-min said. "I have 0G combat training." Hana nodded and continued. "The weapons are energy blades about 3 feet long. They cut through almost anything. The duel ends at first blood, but Vraxian first blood means a serious wound. Not a scratch. A cut deep enough to be dangerous. How dangerous are we talking? Jiwoo asked. Fatal to most species, Hana said grimly. Vraxians have thick skin and redundant organs. What they consider first blood would kill a human quickly without medical help. Good to know, Taemin muttered. Hana pulled up recordings of previous duels. They watched in silence as massive Vraxians battled each other in the sphere, their forearms wielding multiple weapons, their movements brutal and efficient. One recording showed a Vraxian fighting an insectoid alien from the Krix species. The fight lasted 45 seconds. The Krix warrior was torn apart. How many non-Vraxians have won these duels? Taemin asked. Hana's silence was answer enough. None, she finally said. In 4,000 years of recorded history, no non-Vraxian has ever defeated a Vraxian warlord in single combat. Well, Taemin said, standing up. I guess it is time to make history. He found Donghyun in the station's security section. Donghyun was the chief of the human security team on Apex Prime, a former Marine with a chest full of medals and arms like tree trunks. When Taemin explained what he needed, Donghyun just grinned. I heard about the challenge, Donghyun said. I was hoping you would come see me. He led Taemin to the security training room, a large space with padded walls and adjustable gravity. So, special ops, huh? Jiwoo told me. Which unit? 7th Recon. Donghyun whistled. The Ghost Unit. I heard stories about you guys. Never confirmed, of course. That was the point. They trained for hours. Donghyun had Taemin practice with weighted training blades in zero gravity, moving through attack and defense patterns, but Taemin quickly realized something important. The Vraxians fight with forms, he said after the third session. They follow patterns, traditional strikes and blocks. That is what warriors do when they have centuries of tradition, Donghyun agreed. They learn the old ways and stick to them, which means they are predictable. Taemin floated in the center of the room, blade in hand, thinking. They fight like it is a dance, beautiful, powerful, but structured. And you? I fight like it is war. Ugly, efficient, whatever works. Taemin looked at his instructor. We need to throw out half of what you are teaching me. The pretty moves, the honorable techniques. I need to fight dirty. Donghyun's grin got wider. Now you are talking my language. They changed the training completely. No more formal stances. No more predictable patterns. Taemin learned to use the zero-gravity environment in ways the Vraxians would not expect. Moving in 3 dimensions, attacking from unexpected angles, using momentum and spin to generate force without strength. Between training sessions, Taemin watched more recordings with Hana. They slowed down the footage, analyzed every movement. Hana pointed out something crucial. Look at the way they move their arms. All 4 work together, but there is a pattern. Front right leads, front left defends, rear arm support. It is coordinated, but it is always the same coordination, which means if I disrupt the pattern, the whole system becomes confused, Hana finished. Maybe. In theory. Theory is all we have right now. Word spread through the station that the human was training. Curious aliens came to watch from the observation windows. Some laughed. Others looked impressed that he was at least trying. Betting pools opened across the galaxy. The odds against Taemin were 500 to 1. No one gave him a real chance. On Earth, billions of people watched the news with growing anxiety. Taemin received hundreds of messages. Most wished him luck. Some begged him to find a way out of the duel. One message came from his sister, young Mi, who was a doctor in Seoul. I know you are scared, she wrote. I am scared too, but I also know you, big brother. You do not do things without a plan, you never have. So whatever plan you have, trust it. Trust yourself. And show them what we are made of. I love you. Taemin read the message 3 times. Then he got up and trained for another 4 hours. On the second day, Jiwoo pulled him aside. The Vraxians are circulating footage of Krelvath's previous duels. They want you to be afraid. Are you trying to scare me or warn me? Both. She showed him the recordings on her datapad. Krelvath was massive even by Vraxian standards. He moved with terrifying speed for something so large. His forearms worked together like a machine designed for destruction. In one duel, he defeated his opponent in less than a minute. In another, he toyed with his enemy for 10 minutes before delivering the killing blow. "He is a monster," Jiwoo said quietly. "No," Taemin replied, watching the footage carefully. "He is a warrior. There is a difference. Warriors have pride. Pride has patterns. Patterns have weaknesses. You sound confident." "I sound like I am trying to convince myself," he admitted. "But I think I see something. The way he fights, it is about dominance, overwhelming force. He wants his opponent to feel helpless. And if I do not feel helpless, if I do not fight the way he expects, maybe I can find an opening." Taemin handed back the datapad. "Maybe." The massive space station hung in the void like a jewel made of metal and light. Apex Prime was the largest neutral ground in the galaxy, a place where different species came to talk instead of fight. Today the station buzzed with tension. Ships from 100 worlds crowded the docking bays, all waiting to see if peace or war would come from the meeting inside. Ambassador Taemin stood in front of the large window in his quarters, watching the stars. He was 42 years old, with tired eyes that had seen too much. His black hair was starting to show gray at the temples. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Nothing fancy, nothing threatening. That was the point. Humans wanted to look peaceful. Behind him, Jiwoo checked her datapad for the third time. She was his military advisor, though she tried not to look like one. Short hair, sharp eyes, and a way of standing that said she could handle trouble. "The Vraxian fleet just arrived," she said quietly. 12 warships. They're not even trying to be subtle." Taemin nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Vraxians always brought overwhelming force. It was their way. They were a warrior race and they wanted everyone to remember it. "Is Hana ready?" he asked. "She's already in the conference room going over the translation protocols," Jiwoo replied. "She's nervous." "We all are." Taemin turned to face her. "Nervous is good. Nervous keeps us sharp." The conference room was enormous, designed to hold representatives from species of all shapes and sizes. The ceiling stretched high above, and the walls were made of a material that shifted colors based on the mood of the room. Right now, they were a cautious yellow-green. The Galactic Council sat in a semicircle. Dozens of aliens from dozens of worlds. Some looked like animals from Earth. Others looked like nothing Earth had ever produced. The human delegation sat on one side, just 3 people. Taemin in the center, Jiwoo on his right, and Hana on his left. Hana was young, barely 30, with nervous hands that kept adjusting her translation earpiece. She was brilliant with languages, could speak 17 alien tongues, but she had never been in a room like this. Across from them, the Vraxian delegation waited. They did not sit. Standing was a power move, and they knew it. There were 5 of them, each one massive, at least 8 feet tall. Their skin looked like dark purple armor, and they had 4 arms each. Their eyes glowed with an inner fire, orange and angry. In the center stood Warlord Krelvath. He was larger than the others, covered in scars that spoke of 1,000 battles. Spikes jutted from his shoulders, and when he breathed, it sounded like a furnace. He stared at Taemin with something between curiosity and contempt. The council leader, a floating jellyfish-like creature called a Sylphine, spoke in a voice that bubbled like water. The translation came through crystal clear. "We gathered today to discuss trade between the human worlds and the Vraxian Empire. Ambassador Taemin, you may begin." Taemin stood slowly. He did not rush. Rushing showed weakness to species like the Vraxians. Honored Council, honored representatives of the Vraxian Empire. Humanity comes today with an offer of mutual benefit. Our agricultural technology could feed millions on Vraxian colony worlds. In exchange, we seek access to Vraxian mining operations in the Keltor sector. It was a fair deal. Everyone in the room knew it. Everyone except Krelvath, apparently. The warlord laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was the sound of rocks grinding together. "Agricultural technology," he repeated, making the word sound like an insult. "You offer to teach us how to grow food? We are Vraxians. We take what we need. We do not beg for scraps like farmers." Taemin kept his face calm. "No one is begging, Warlord. We are offering trade. Both our peoples benefit." Krelvath stepped forward. The floor shook slightly under his weight. Your people hide behind words. You talk of trade and benefit when you should speak of strength and conquest. This is why the galaxy does not respect you. You are a species of cowards who hide behind diplomacy. The room went very quiet. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Insulting another species during negotiations was allowed technically, but it was considered poor form. It meant the insulting party did not take the negotiations seriously. Taemin felt Jiwoo tense beside him. He knew she wanted to respond to defend humanity's honor, but that was not his way, not yet. Warlord Krelvath, I understand that our cultures are different. What we call wisdom you might call weakness, but wisdom has built human civilization across 50 worlds. Perhaps there is strength in that too. Strength? Krelvath's eyes blazed brighter. I see no strength. I see a man who speaks soft words and hopes I will not notice how fragile he is. He looked around at the council. Why does the galaxy waste time with these humans? They have nothing to offer but talk. Before Taemin could respond, young Sujin stood up. She was the junior diplomat here to observe and learn. She should not have spoken, but she was young and angry and could not help herself. With respect, Warlord, humanity has much to offer. Our medical technology, our science, our culture. She never finished. One of Krelvath's honor guards, a slightly smaller Vraxian with 3 parallel scars across his face, moved forward and struck Sujin across the face with the back of his hand. She flew backward, hitting the floor hard. Blood ran from her nose. The room erupted. Council members shouted in a dozen languages. Jiwoo was on her feet, moving toward Sujin. Hana gasped and covered her mouth. Taemin remained still, standing, watching. Krelvath did not apologize. He did not even acknowledge what his guard had done. Instead, he looked directly at Taemin. Your subordinate spoke out of turn. She was corrected. If you wish to protest, then meet me like a warrior, not like a diplomat. The Silthine council leader's voice cut through the noise. Warlord Krelvath, violence is forbidden in these chambers. Then we will take it outside the chambers, Krelvath said. His eyes never left Taemin. I challenge you, human. A duel of honor, Vraxian tradition. You and me in the sphere with blades. First blood. The room fell silent again. A Vraxian honor duel. Everyone knew what that meant. They were brutal, usually fatal. No non-Vraxian had ever won one against a warlord. If you refuse, Krelvath continued, humanity will be marked as a dishonored species. No Vraxian will trade with you. Many others will follow our lead. You will be shunned. He smiled, showing too many teeth. But if you accept and lose, the result is the same. And if somehow impossibly you win, we will sign your treaty and honor your people. Taemin looked at Sujin, who was sitting up now, Jiwoo helping her. Blood still dripped from her nose. He looked at Hana, whose eyes were wide with fear. He looked at the council, at all the alien faces watching him waiting. Then he looked back at Krelvath. I accept your challenge, Warlord. The room exploded with noise. The Silthine tried to restore order. Jiwoo grabbed Taemin's arm, her grip tight. Are you insane? She whispered. Taemin just watched as Krelvath laughed, a sound like thunder. The warlord raised all 4 arms in triumph. 3 days, he announced. 3 days to prepare yourself, human. Then the galaxy will watch you fall. As the Vraxians left the chamber, still laughing, Taemin finally moved. He helped Sujin to her feet. Get her to medical, he told Jiwoo quietly. Then he turned to Hana. I need everything you can find on Vraxian honor duels. Rules, traditions, recordings, everything. Taemin, Hana said, her voice shaking. No one survives these duels. No one. He smiled, just a little. It did not reach his eyes. Then I suppose I will be the first. The walls of the conference room had turned deep red, the color of blood and war.